Pigs. In the September 1976 issue of the industry journal Hog Farm Management, John Burns advised, "Forget the pig as an animal. Treat him just like a machine in a factory." And that's why they're called factory farms. They treat their animals just like parts and machinery. It's like a factory. They're just turned decent animals, just like your dog or your cat, are turned into, they're turned into meat making, milk making, egg laying machines. That's just what they are in this industry. And it's really sickening when you think about it because dogs and cats, they're perfectly sensitive and, sensitive to pain. And, it's really about the suffering. Would you want your dog or your cat to suffer like this in these horrible enclosures and then killed in such a very cruel way and turned into meat? Of course not. Any decent moral person would say no to that. Yet that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing when you're buying meat. You're propping up this industry that does this. Especially the mammals. The mammals, they're just as good as your dog or cat. But any animal, really. For any animal, it's not right, no matter how you look at it. Continuing with pigs. Today's pig farmers have done just that. As Morley Safer related on 60 Minutes, this motion picture he's talking about, Babe, is the way Americans want to think of pigs. Real-life babes see no sun in their limited lives, with no hay to live on, no mud to roll in. The sows live in tiny cages so narrow they can't even turn around. They live over metal grates, and their waste is pushed through slats beneath them and flushed into huge pits. Dairy cows. From 1940 to 2004, average per cow milk production rose from 2.3 to 9.5 tons per year. Some cows have surpassed 30 tons. High milk production causes utter breakdown, leading to early slaughter. It is unprofitable to keep cows alive once their milk production declines. They are usually killed at 5 to 6 years of age, though their normal lifespan exceeds 20. Dairy cows are rarely allowed to nurse their young. Many male calves are slaughtered immediately, while others are raised for special-fed veal, kept in individual stalls and chained by the neck on a 2 to 3 foot tether for 18 to 20 weeks before being slaughtered. Mrs. DeBoer said she had never milked a cow by hand and never expected to. In the factory that is her barn, the employees, almost entirely Latino, manage the machinery. "It's just a factory is what it is," she said. "If the cows don't produce milk, they go to beef." Transport. Crammed together, animals must stand in their excrement while exposed to extreme temperatures in open trucks, sometimes freezing to the trailer. Approximately 200,000 pigs arrive dead at U.S. slaughter plants each year. Many of these deaths are caused by a lack of ventilation or on trucks in hot weather. Workers shock the animals with electric prods, which increases the incidence of downers, animals too sick or injured to stand. Downers are hauled from the trucks with skid loaders and forklifts. And this is one little piece of an article that's talking about downers. Like this bull I had last year, this bull was one of the biggest bulls I've ever seen. It was at the very front of the trailer, and the spirit it had, he was just trying his hardest to get off the trailer. He had been prodded to death by 3 or 4 drivers, but his back legs, his hips had given out, and so basically they just kept prodding it. So it took about 45 minutes to get it from the front nose of the trailer to the back ramp. Then from there, it was chained with its front legs, and it fell off the ramp, smashed onto the floor, which I don't know how many feet that would be, but quite a racket. I just said, "Why don't you shoot the damn thing? What's going on? What about the code of ethics?" this one guy said, "I never shoot. Why would I shoot a cow that can come off and there's still good meat on there?" Um, when I first started, I talked to another trucker about downers. He said, "You may as well not get upset. It's been going on for many years. It will go on for the rest of my life and your life. So just calm down about it. It happens. You'll get kind of bitter like I did. You just don't think about the animals. You just think that they aren't feeling or whatever." And of course, that's entirely not the case. Of course, they feel this pain, and of course, it's incredibly cruel. And um, I haven't mentioned it yet, but these cows and pigs and these birds, they're all social animals. They they're all social animals, but they're crowded into these little tiny enclosures where the pressure of all of them being crammed together in these tiny enclosures and getting sick, uh, it's just incredibly cruel. And they're often separated from their families too, especially like the dairy cows. Like they were saying, the male calves are separated from their mothers very early. It's really sick, really sick what goes on. And fish. FAO classifies 75% of the world marine stocks as fully exploited, overexploited, and depleted. And you see this over and over and over in the news. Stories about overfishing and the environmental impacts. Not to mention any ethical problems. The environmental impacts that wreaks on marine ecosystems is just horrible. It's devastating. Hundreds of thousands of mammals, including dolphins, die in nets each year. The fastest growing animal food producing sector is fish farming. Inappropriate stocking densities on farms cause poor water quality, stress, aggression, injuries, disease, and mortality. And like he's saying, fish farming is bad too. It's bad for the animals, but it's also bad for the ecosystems nearby too, because the runoff from that can really destroy ecosystems. If slaughterhouses had glass walls, if they survive the farms and transport the animals, whether factory farmed or free ranged, are slaughtered. Federal law requires that mammals be stunned prior to slaughter, exempting kosher and halal. Common methods. Captive or and That's a very important thing people need to realize too. Kosher and halal are very cruel. It says they're not even stunned prior to slaughter. They're not even stunned, so they can feel the pain completely. They feel it completely. There's no sedative or stunning at all. That's what's so wrong with halal and kosher. It's really those methods are really sickening. I mean, as if factory farm isn't sickening enough, those methods are even worse. Yet the religious justify it because it's in their teachings. That's just wrong. That's just wrong, ignorant, narrow-minded thinking. That's one of the things that's wrong with organized religion. But that's besides the topic. Anyways, common methods: captive bolt stunning. A pistol is set against the animal's head and a metal rod is thrust into the brain. Shooting a struggling animal is difficult, and the rod often misses the mark. Electrical stunning. Current procedures. A grand mal seizure? Current produces a grand mal seizure. Then the throat is cut. According to the industry consultant Temple Grandin, PhD, insufficient amperage can cause an animal to be paralyzed without losing sensibility. So they're paralyzed, but they're still fully sensitive to pain. It takes 25 minutes to turn a live steer into steak at the modern slaughterhouse where Ramon Moreno works. The cattle were supposed to be dead before they got to Moreno, but too often they weren't. They blink. They make noises, he said softly. The head moves. The eyes are wide and looking around. Still Moreno would cut. On bad days, he says, dozens of animals reached his station clearly alive and conscious. Some would survive as far as the tail cutter, the belly ripper, the hide puller. They die, said Moreno, piece by piece. That was from Modern Meat, A Brutal Harvest. Hogs, unlike cattle, are dunked in tanks of hot water after they are stunned to soften the hides for skinning. They're dunked in... Whoa. Let me read that again. Hogs, unlike cattle, are dunked in tanks of hot water after they're stunned. And stunning, they said, is often unsuccessful. So they're just dunking them in scalding hot water alive. They're fully sensitive to the pain, and it's just horrible torture. This stuff is like hell on earth. This is like hell on earth. I wouldn't mind going to hell so much as being one of these animals, you know? It's terrible. It's terrible. I mean, as if there was a hell. But it's terrible. Hell on earth right here. As a result, botched slaughter condemns some hogs to being scalded and drowned. Secret videotape from an Iowa pork plant shows hogs squealing and kicking as they are being lowered into the water. To ease handling, birds raised for meat are usually paralyzed via electrical stunning. However, it is not known whether stunning renders the birds unconscious. The shock may be an intensely painful experience. Each year, large numbers of chickens, turkeys, ducks, and geese reach the scalding tanks alive and are either boiled to death or drowned. In my opinion, if most urban meat eaters were to visit an industrial broiler house to see how the birds are raised, and could see the birds being harvested and then being processed in a poultry processing plant, they would not be impressed, and some, perhaps many of them, would swear off eating chicken and perhaps all meat. That was Dr. Peter Cheek from Contemporary Issues in Animal Agriculture. Recent undercover investigation into poultry slaughter. In January 2007, a Mercy for Animals investigator took a job at one of the nation's largest poultry slaughterhouses to witness the conditions firsthand. Birds with broken legs and wings, open wounds, and large tumors were shackled and hung on the slaughter line. Some of the injured were left writhing on the floor for hours beforehand. Workers punched, kicked, threw, and mutilated live birds. And the funny thing, well, not funny, but the really sick, ironic thing is that we complain about a dog, maybe like a dog in a puppy mill, being kicked around, punched and threw and mutilated, and we complain about that on national news about the animal cruelty going on, about like Michael Vick abusing his dogs or whatever. But when it comes to this, I think part of it's the ignorance. The meat industry wants all this to be kept in the dark because they know they would lose profits if this wasn't kept in the dark. But it's really sick and ironic that no one knows about this kind of torture, and no one seems to care, except the very small minority of people that are vegetarians and vegans. They tore eggs from the birds' bodies to toss at coworkers and ripped the heads off birds who were trapped inside the transport cages. In 2005, at an even larger plant, a PETA investigator saw many birds mangled by the throat-cutting machines. Workers yanked the heads off birds who missed the blade. For the undercover footage and further details on these and other slaughterhouse investigations, please see veganoutreach.org/video, that, as it says in the article.